Hey everybody, this is Perch, and I feel like this is a stupid thing I'm about to talk about, but I'm going to do it anyway because you gotta fill these airwaves some way. Anyway, um, how one of the things that I always find really puzzling, and my brain gets caught up in it, is when you have an observation, a complaint, or whatever it is, and the way that people process complaints is all different from all people. Some people, they hear a complaint and it doesn't really mean much to them. Other, you manage to hit upon some emotional nerve, and it's like the person screaming. They did this study where they had a kind of an insult, like "this show sucks" was the phrase. It's very, very simple. And then they put it in front of 10 people, and they asked everybody to kind of measure how extreme it was or how angry it sounded. And of course, as you can imagine, 10 people, 10 wildly different interpretations of what the same sentence meant. And well, what does all this mean? It means that, as we're trying to communicate with each other and, come to some kind of common community, it's impossible if, even when the same things are being said, people are interpreting things massively differently. How do you ever get any kind of understanding or balance? And I notice it, like, sometimes I post videos and I may be just dumb, which is possible. I openly will admit that. As does Forget it. It's not possible. It's 100% guaranteed. But I'll post something along the lines of, uh, you know, I think this, and I'll get bizarre responses. And it's taught me a couple things. Like, for example, if you are commenting on something that touches the X community, the X Men community, Al Ewing's fan base, or Poison Ivy, you're running a very high likelihood that you're going to get people who just are going to be pissed at you, no matter what. Like, if you say anything critical about Poison Ivy, be prepared for, like, the legion of Poison Ivy fans to come in and just want to crap all over you. Doesn't really matter what you do. And what the argument that often gets used, and I saw this just the other day when I posted when are we going to admit there's too many X-Men titles? And I said that somewhat facetiously, like I've talked about before. I'm not doing clickbait headlines, but I'm bored, so I put whatever I want in there. And there are people in there like, why do you care? It's not your money. It's not your publishing company. Why do you care? You're entitled. And it's like, it's an opinion, man. I feel like the dude. It's like, it's an opinion, man. It's just like, that's just like your opinion. Like, you can buy. Like, I'll turn it around for you. Why do you care what some random YouTuber's saying? Like, literally, why do you care? I actually asked this guy one. He's like, I care because you sound entitled. It's like, then don't. I mean, what? Use your own advice. Don't watch. You're telling me you don't pay attention. You don't watch. Well, nobody will do anything, and we'll play Animal Crossing together, and that will be how we'll bond as a society. But it is it I find it funny because one way it dawned on me that I view this channel and a lot of what I do, because sometimes I'm doing numbers, sometimes I'm doing just random commentary, and it's a little bit like a talk show. There are people who every day they wake up and they do 3 hours worth of talk radio or talk shows, and sometimes you're getting hard hitting news, and sometimes you're getting what the guy ate for breakfast, and some who knows what you're doing. And I think that's a little bit what there's value. And what I always hope people will do is self-select in or out. Like, they'll start watching, and the show will be about, it'll be about the history of Cherry Comics, and you didn't realize that was what you wanted to hear about, but the hell, it's interesting. You learned something. Or maybe the topic is about creators getting hammered at conventions, and you're like, I don't care about this at all. It doesn't sound interesting to me. I will move on. I will hit next or somewhere else or whatever. And it's like, this content's getting offered up. And every time, like, very rarely people come in and say things like, hey, I watch all the shows, and I really struggle to watch some of the shows. And I think to myself, don't struggle. Like, just opt out. Like, I mean, Christ, especially with my channel, you got like 2,000 videos at this point. You can move on to the next one. Don't worry about it. Like, don't watch. If some of them are making you crazy, don't watch it. Now, on the other hand, I do hope some of them you're disagreeing with. It's funny because I've done some of these interviews. I really enjoyed doing the one with Jeff Thorne, because he's like, I disagree with plenty of things you say, and but it's fun hearing kind of your reasons. And I don't agree with the conclusion, but it's fun hearing the reasons. And it's like that. Perfect. Yes, thank you. I why I hear the same thing from Sean Murphy has said this, and from people I've had on the Friday streams. Creator or fan alike. It it nobody should agree with everything. Like I really get very weirded out, and maybe it's just I know Ben Templesmith said that too. Like I don't take compliments well. Like I think he said he didn't take compliments well. I also do not take compliments well. I people who say like I agree or even have an expectation that they're supposed to agree with everything that's coming out. I mean, like please don't. Like we get better. I've said this a million times. We all get better and smarter when we're disagreeing with things we say. And I do think that there, because I've heard on either other people or other shows, they really have a problem with disagreement. Like they really don't want the people who are listening to disagree. And I want you to disagree. I want you to say, hey, that's like every now and then, somebody will write and they'll say, hey, you got this one fact wrong, and they're so timid about it. They're like, you got this. Like for example, I did the Venom analysis, and I mentioned that the previous series was the Venom Space Knight. So you had Rick Remender's and you had the Venom Space Knight series, and it's true, it was a previous series, but there was one between Venom Space Knight and Donny Cates taking over the title. I missed it. And some people are like, hey, you missed this one. And they pointed me to it. I was grateful. I was nothing but grateful. And I think I don't know, that makes sense, right? That's how the world should be. I mean, no one's expected to remember all the things. Nobody, none of us should be expected to remember all the things all the time. And that's why we talk to each other. We remind each other of what's going on, and then everybody's better off for it. And that's, then life's better. I don't know. Comic books this is, as I've mentioned before, I love the disagreements and the arguments and the debates that would go on inside the comic shop. And it was really brought into focus this year because when I started this channel, I had my comic shop. And then this year, of course, no comic shop. And, in the near future, the comic shop will be open again. But the thing that I realized I missed so much is the debates, the angry, not angry. That's a funny thing. They were not usually angry. They were just good, solid debates. The couldn't the Hulk beat up Superman, and the various reasons people would throw out, and comic book customers, fans, they definitely get invested in their answer. They definitely, it's not, they are all in. When they're having this argument, they're all in, and in many cases argue with great passion. But I would watch people in the shop have very heated, very, very heated arguments. Like, and then like, oh, you're crazy. That guy's crazy. Just very, very animated fights about things. And then people would, collect up their comics and they'd head out together smiling and patting each other on the back and, maybe go grab some food to eat together and go home. There's no, like, they didn't ever, never, ever, ever did a group of people argue about which superhero was tougher and then go outside and have a fist fight. Like that never happened. Never. And in some cases, I used to joke that I wish it would happen. Like there's these big heated arguments. Like I remember saying once to a guy who worked for me in the shop that I was like saying, I wish I could put a camera on this and then a camera outside. And then they would go outside and like one guy, we would be watching wrestling at the time. Like one guy would pick up a garbage can and start beating the other guy over the head with it. And it would be a whole thing. Like I could sell that video for so much money. Comic book fights, but it never happened. And what's peculiar and what I think everybody should kind of try and recognize is, in contrast, online, on Twitter, on YouTube, on these other places, these fights now are like deathmatch. But it's also phony because it never actually leads to deathmatch. Like all these threads and these and all across the board, fans, creators, Chuck Wendig going out and saying, he could just eat a big pile of, and all this kind of stuff. Like, if suddenly this was forced into real life, including, by the way, people who like to puff up their chest and act like internet tough guys, like Mark Wade goes to conventions and stands behind the table and like beats his chest and be like, I'm a tough guy, and yet you get him on the floor, in presented with a place where it might actually lead to a fist fight, and suddenly, it suddenly everybody gets way more reasonable. It's a remarkable how a lot of these arguments suddenly transform when faced with the possibility you might get a bloody nose if you keep going with this. And not always. There's definitely been some brawls in comics, but by and large, the percentage of actual heat in real life is so much smaller. And yet, you go online, you see like the people have been done full live streams about how I'm gonna go to this guy's place and I'm gonna punch him right in the mouth. And it's like, all right. I mean, again, if that ever is going to happen, please somebody let me know so I can show up with my camera and some piped in crowd noise, and I'll get. God, who was the ring announcer that the WCW used? Michael Buffer, was that it? And we can have comic book fights. And now, rather than my old business plan, which is going to be producing some videotapes and trying to sell them at a flea market, I can put them online, make a Patreon and sell comic book fights. But there was this thing back years ago, they had like bum fights where some very terrible person would go and like film homeless people fighting, and very exploitive, very awful. But so this would be comic book fights, and we'll just get comic book fans and creators will just film it, and then it can go on. But that's the thing. They don't exist. That's the comedy or the tragedy in all this, is that for all the bluster, for all the sound and fury, for all the noise, it's very easy on the internet to come in and be like, "You're entitled, you jerk." But I the amount of times this would actually be said, like this isn't how it works. So I'm looking forward to the pandemic being over. I'm looking forward to shops being back open again. I'm looking forward to wonderful, heated, fun debates in a comic shop about the Silver Surfer and how the Silver Surfer was won in a card bet from DC. I'm looking forward to that fight to have once again. For people who do not know the origins to that story, you're very confused right now, but that's okay. It was a previous video. Don't worry about it. And I'm looking forward to those days, because those were great substantive fights that did not have that were fun. That's one of the things I was thinking about, the things I love about comics. I truly do absolutely love comics. And one of the things I do legitimately love about comics are those fights, because they were fun, because they were not personal, they weren't ugly, they weren't, it wasn't life or death. They were very animated people taking a position and debating it. I mean, realistically, for those of you who remember high school, they used to have like debate class, and they'd have debate competitions, and it's a very structured, very formal kind of debate, and there's a whole style to it, and they've got competitions for being able to debate your point the best and everything else. And I always remember thinking, if you want to see a true debate competition, if you want to see something truly with some real energy behind it, come to the comic shop and just watch the battle unfold between, if Donna Troy is a rip-off character of Wonder Woman or not. Those were the good old days. Anyway, do you miss those like me? Do you long for the days of those debates? Do you think that this whole the internet debates is this pale, crappy imitation it sucks so much. It's for all the additional heat and angst and emotion behind it. It always comes across as so childish and petty. And I long for real life. Hopefully, like all of you. I know it's weird for a YouTuber to be saying that, but there you go. Hey, what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Like, subscribe, smack the like button. Don't smack it. Hit the dislike button. Fight me. Thanks for listening.